Welcome to the Town Poll, guys, and we're going to talk about some of your current favorite hot topics that are going on in comic books. And Rob is going to play Overwatch. I'm going to catch everyone up real quick, and then I'm going to what Rob said basically got me thinking about what I actually was, because I was just so so everyone knows the Champions thing with the racism and hate crimes and stuff like that. But I started the pre-show. I came up with basically stating like. I was like, look, I don't care about your race, your religion, all that crap. I just want superhero stories in my superhero books, which then got us into a debate, like from Kate Joel, who basically was like, hey, no, this is good for certain individuals, and Caitlin was defending it as well, and I think even Tiffany to an extent. But I think after what Rob said, I finally figured out what was bugging me, because I couldn't place my hand on like what was bugging me about this story, you know? And Rob said it best, we have that everywhere. Why is it in our comics now? Because you said not every book is written for everyone, and I am a big advocate for that. You know, because there's so many books out there that certain individuals will read and enjoy, and they get a message out of it. And some individuals are like, "Hey, this is not for me. This is not written for me. I don't understand it. I don't relate or anything like that." But when it comes to constantly shoehorning in these agendas and stuff like that, it is everywhere in the goddamn world right now. Why?
Well, maybe only like 3 books again, like the Captain Americas and Champions. And Green Arrow
in
too,
Marvel,
but that's
it's
always
all over the place. Because if you've been paying attention, Miss Marvel has been going in a very heavy direction in that. And that basically, let me go ahead.
Well, yeah, as the most visual Muslim American superhero, I think with a Muslim writer, I think it's kind of her right to talk about these issues.
Why does this have to be in our comics at all? Is there really a comic book demographic that you need to preach? Hey, we don't want to be racist to. Like, where's the racist comic book?
I would argue we live in a day and age where more kids read comics than watch the news or read the paper. So if you can educate and entertain them at the same time, and I'll admit some do a better job of it than others. But, you know, I say, hey, go for it.
But that's my argument. Who are you educating and don't be racist? Like, if you're a racist individual in this world, somebody making a comic is not going to make you be like, oh, you're right. That's wrong.
Wow.
So then you just don't educate people on other people's empathetic perspectives at all. You harshly regulate writers to only play to their core demographics. You don't try to expand your market at all. And you re-niche yourself into a really small corner where most of the world doesn't live anymore.
But why can't you teach your lessons, get your message across while making it a superhero story?
People do that too.
You can do that. Nick Spencer does a great job about that. The X-Men does a great job with that. I mean, there's a plethora of writers. I know I keep referencing them, but they're just the 2 most obvious. But there's plenty of writers that do that. But that's not these writers. And that's not these particular writers and artists that are doing that.
So get those writers and artists to get on a project where their message will make sense. Don't put it into the middle of a superhero book.
But it's already in the middle of Captain America, Steve Rogers, and Sam Wilson.
Right, but what I'm saying is something like Champions doesn't need that. Champions right now need some solid stories so that people give a fuck about them. Because the sales are tanking, and when you just keep shoehorning more stories out that are like, now we're going to go down south to fight racism, it's like,
no. Were they in the South? Where's Daly County? I thought that was in California.
From a marketing standpoint, Benny, I do agree that the stories should honestly be solid and should be a little bit more politically interwoven, and it should be a little bit, and we should give more credit to our readers in that sense. But honestly, this is the way that these artists and writers are choosing to express themselves. Whether or not that will continue will depend on their sales numbers, but it's a strategy that Marvel is trying out right now. I can't necessarily knock them for that, because until their sales numbers stabilize from reaching out to new demographics, which you always see a wave, you know, you see a lot of ups and downs when you start branching out to new demographics. Until those stabilize, and we can see how these trends are actually going and how they're actually panning out, I can't knock it. You know, I do wish that the stories were more solid and were more interwoven, because that's my kind of thing. But, I really like the way that other writers handle it.
We already know that across the board, unless it's a #1, they're not selling, and that's the problem.
Can I just say,
yeah,
right now Marvel is in the situation of they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. If they create a story that is simply for making sales, they get in trouble, and people don't like it. Look at Civil War 2. If they make a story like Champions that they just want to tell, this is the story that person wants to tell, and they feel like because these heroes are younger, and that is kind of what you see certain members of the millennial generation being interested in, or these types of issues, they're in trouble for that too. So like, I think they don't know what to do because they're getting criticism from all angles at this point. So it's like, how do you filter that? You know, like how do you?
And I completely agree with you, Tiff. Like, we tried purely marketing people in the room. Like, I know what Benny's suggesting is like heavy marketing presence, you know, make sure that you play to your core demos and all of that kind of thing. And we tried that with Civil War II. We tried just having a marketing team in the room and throwing a writer
Civil War
with
II
a
had
big
a
name
number of
into
other
it.
issues, though. The Civil War II issue was not that.
It had a lot of continuity issues, but a big problem with it was that it had no soul, and the marketing team was dictating most of the major decisions.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And that was a
Civil
huge
War II had
problem.
problems like the story being shitty, it not lining up with their current agenda, it not lining up with anything. The tie-ins making no goddamn sense.
Because the marketing team was in the room, and a marketing team can't write comic books and tie-ins, but that's what they let happen. They just put a marketing team in the room and said, Civil War II will sell well because we got a movie coming out. Just maximize your sales and maximize the analytics on this title and just make sure it goes out the door. And that's how we got Civil War II. Champions is a lot more creative control on the side of the writers and the artists. They're experimenting with a lot of different things right now because they're just trying to figure out how to not be screwed, basically.
Yeah, but here's the thing, man. Like, I don't buy that whole argument of like millennials and the social justice warrior movement. You want to know why I don't buy that?
Don't use that word every time someone uses that word.
I don't.
Millennials a thing, Joel. Are you unaware of it?
No. The other one. The other
movement. The reason why I don't buy that is simple. Coney, 2012. You guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
It was the most talked about, the hottest movement for the summer of 2012. We're going to change the world, guys. We're going to depose this dictator right up until millennials lost interest. And then they went to go do something else. No. Hold on. I'm not done. All right. The Flint water crisis. The biggest topic in the world until millennials got bored of it. Millennials have an activism attention span of about that long. If the civil rights movement were left to millennials, it would have lasted for a summer and no one would have gained any measure of freedom. Like, it would have been exactly the way it was before. All you have to do is wait millennials out. That's all you have to do. Like,
I get you, but literally everything you just said had to do with a social justice issue, which is what Champions is trying to capitalize on by going through different ones. They're doing exactly what you said. They're using the attention span of a single issue.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's why they're going issue by issue.
That is very true. But you don't build an entire campaign on a social justice concept because interest is only so long as people just happen to kind of care about it for a little while. I mean,
it's like they're building a campaign. It was just one issue.
Which is why they're not doing it, though.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're basically saying, hey, guys.
They're doing it with Champions, they're doing it with a few other off titles, but they're not doing it on the overall. We're seeing a reintegration of Thor, we're going to see the reintegration of Tony Stark, and we still have Spider-Man, we have Unworthy Thor, we have Captain America. I mean, we're getting all of those things, and they're starting to reintegrate back in, but now we have all of these other titles on the side.
I don't know how true this is, and I don't know how, because this is literally third party, I heard about it. And I don't even know if it's really old, and I just missed the memo. But apparently, when they were moving Miles Morales over, or recently, Brian Michael Bendis was like, "You either accept the new Spider-Man as the Spider-Man, or you're racist." And I don't know, like I said, I don't know how true that is, or where that came from, or whatever. But
that seems like an overly aggressive thing for Bendis to say.
Yeah. I know. And that's why I'm not being like, I heard this directly.
Right.
I think what you might be quoting is okay, I call them pop facts. So pop facts are when we have an original quote or an issue or a statement, and then it goes through the social media blender, and then it comes out an extremist end, conservative or liberal extremist end. And I think that's what you're hearing when you hear things like Bendis said that you either have to accept this as Spider-Man or you're part of the KKK. Like, it's like a game of telephone where each thing gets more and more extreme as it passes through.
Right. What I'm saying is, like, if that were true, then that would mean that Bendis would rather not have Peter Parker around. And, you know, just like Deadpool. Like, I have a feeling that if Deadpool was not as popular as he is, he either would have been regulated to nothing or swapped out already. Lady Deadpool would have come over the multiverse, and now she's the main.
I don't know.
No, I know.
There are some comics that are kind of cool. I mean, Moon Knight's cool because it's just like it's a trip into the whole, into a crazy person's head, basically. Like it's cool to see that kind of thing unfold. Old Man Logan has its cool moments too, but I get that these issues are important to young kids, but they must not be that important because they're not talking about them anymore. So I would say that when it comes to stories like that, like I would say it's important so long as it's like a talking point at the time, which is cool to have tentpole issues. It's cool if something like the Flint water crisis comes up, then like there's a story arc that deals with that, but focus on things that more people deal with, that they deal with on a regular basis, instead of just something that's popular for a few months and then move on to something else.
Here's the thing. Think about it like this. That creative team, what they're doing right now, they know they're doing at the risk of their own jobs, which means that they feel like every story they're putting out there is something that they want to tell, because they know that Marvel could pull the plug on this at any moment. And so when you think about it like that, like it must be important enough to them. Whether or not it's important enough to the rest of us, that's something totally different. But you know what? This book will be around. Like, even if it's canceled, it'll still have happened. It will still be a moment in history. It'll still be something that someone in the future could go back and look on and be like, what was going on at the time? I mean, let's be honest, part of the reason that the X-Men were created was because of the hatred and the fear that was going on in culture at the time. Exactly. There are going to be all of these moments that are going to come and go in comics, right? And some of them are just going to be cool stories, and some of them are going to be very poignant stories, or some of them are going to be very reflective of what's going on.
Or some of them are going to suck.
Yeah, and that's true. Some of them are going to suck. But for each of them, we're going to talk about it, and we're all going to have completely different opinions on it, and we're never going to honestly know what's going on in the minds of the people who are running these companies, but we are going to have what comes afterwards, and we're going to have to consider them as a whole, and our opinions can change, and they can be altered, and time will wear away at what we thought of something in the past, and it's okay if that happens. But right now...
also okay to disagree on this stuff. I think that's something we really often forget in general debate, and especially when debating on topics like this, is that it's okay to disagree. Nobody's going to be, a white supremacist if they don't like champions. And nobody's going to be, a crazy social justice libtard that's breaking in windows at a Starbucks if they do like champions. It's fine to debate and discuss and disagree on these types of things, especially when it comes to creative works and creative expression.
Yeah.
And don't forget, look, we, especially you guys, like the amount of comics, Benny and Rob, that you guys read in a week is staggering. You know what I mean? And not all comic book fans are doing that. They're not all intaking all of that. So they may not be seeing as many of them all at once, right? But you know what? Even though we're talking about it right now, if it's something that someone who's watching this in the future, or who's watching it right now,
20 years from now,
right? Maybe they're not aware, or they don't think about these kind of issues as a whole, right? If it's something that it gets on someone's radar, then the creative team will probably have succeeded in what they wanted to do. You know what I mean?
That seems to be the entire point of Champions, is to move the discussion and to get people talking about it. They don't seem to care if the numbers do well or not, because it's clearly not marketing content. They're clearly not trying to pander to the core demographic, and they have no idea if the demographic that would even want to read it is out there reading. They just want to talk about these topics.
So much to the point that instead of a letters page, they have an @Twitter thing in the back of the comic.
Really do.
Yeah.
I thought that's genius. I'm like, why don't more comics do that? Everybody's tweeting. Who sends an email to get in the back of the comic?
And that's what they want.
I want to get in the letters page.
Well, you tweet at them, Benny.
Letters page, then, Benny.
Yeah, and then just write really, really nice stuff about the story. Well, you guys are also operating under the assumption that the writers are writing this because they want to. What if they're writing it because they have to?
Want to.
I
think
feel
so?
like...
Yeah, I've got a feel for most of these writers. Nick Spencer feels strongly about his Captain America thing, and Mark Wade.
Nick Spencer feels very strongly about many things.
You think Mark Wade feels strongly about that?
Indeed. Oh yeah. I listen to him all the time. I've seen him get into Twitter arguments. I do believe he believes what he wrote. I believe it's coming from a very passionate place.
I'm on board with this too. Mark Wade just got blasted for tweeting out that he feels all superheroes are social justice warriors. So of course that took to, what do you mean by that, Mark?
Well, they all do for social justice, unless you're the Punisher, in which case, Punisher and Jonah Hex are like the two where I'm like, nah. And even Jonah Hex married an Asian woman, so he's not racist.
Yeah.
Look,
I mean,
I like how you went there. You went there. Jonah Hex did interracial stuff.
well, and he fought for the South in the Civil War, but that was a geography thing. He made it very clear.
Geography thing.
Oh, he says that in the comics, like, and I fought for the South in the Civil War. It was a geography thing.
I mean, it's a funny joke for sure.
Listen, comics are going to come back around. You know what I mean? Like, DC was in a weird place with the New 52. People liked it, people hated it, and it came back around to what it is now. You know what I mean? Marvel's in a different place right now, and it's going to come back around because everything does. History is, if nothing else, is cyclical.
That is a really good point.
I've been saying this for a while now, but we've been getting to that point where so this is going to sound probably like a lot of people are going to be like, no, that's not true. It's purely social justice reasons that Marvel's not doing well. But the thing is that, like, as somebody who likes to collect comics, as somebody who has been in the marketing field for a while and who deals with analytics, I know it's from an IT perspective, but everything's done online now. So what we see is what I think we've seen before in the 90s, when the market got very, very oversaturated with superhero comics, with all these different variants, with all these different story runs. We started seeing minor characters getting their own runs and all of these things. And we saw sales, because of this oversaturation, really start to tank. Where it was very obvious in the 90s was DC. Marvel sustained and then excelled after this huge dip in sales and in comic book interest in the 90s. Marvel stayed relatively stable, and then they were on the up and up. What we're seeing now is we're seeing the reverse. We're seeing the market get oversaturated again. We're seeing people start to lose interest in comics, but instead we're seeing DC remain fairly stable, and we're watching them climb on the up and up, and we're watching Marvel sales, much like DC's in the 90s, start to really tank. And part of that is honestly mostly the oversaturation of the market in general. I think Disney's strategists are not morons, okay? They know that this is going on. They know that we're starting to see the oversaturation. We know that we're starting to see a dip in sales. We know that comic books are either going to, like they did in the 90s, re-niche themselves or expand into other demographics. Marvel in the 90s, what made them so successful after that burst was they were starting to expand outwards. And that's what they're trying to recapture now. I think what's happening is they're seeing this dip in sales. They're like, we're probably going to take a hit because of this no matter what. Let's use this time to experiment and to branch out into other markets and just see what we can do if we're going to take this hit. And that's what's happening. A lot of people want to pin this on an agenda because they either have their own agenda to serve and they feel that this supports it, or whatchamacallit ever. But really what it comes down to in regards to sales is it comes down to your business. It comes down to your market. And yeah, demographics have a play in that. But I guarantee you that a majority of these dips is not all because of social justice warriors.
Oh, no,
it is in part due to the overmarket saturation. I think Marvel is just taking this time. It's just taking this dip to experiment and to branch out. And that's really what's happening when you're looking at it on a macro scale.
To build off of that, I think that the biggest reason they're taking a dip is because DC is what I like to call the big shiny red object in the room, because they just went through a huge change. So everyone was like, what? I want to be on board for that. You know what I mean? And Marvel's like, all right.
I will admit this. As much as I love DC and I love what DC doing, they are kind of gaming the system by doing double releases per month.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
totally they are.
I just linked into the chat. Batman's 4 and 5. And it's Batman 12 and 13.
And you got to figure out how long will they be able to do that for until you get writer or artist burnout.
Yeah.
To be honest, and that's oversaturating the market just like they did in the 90s.
Hang on. This is brilliant because, let's be honest, I guarantee you go back and you look at sales between Marvel and DC, neither ever does well at the same time. One's always doing better than the other. DC is going to ride this until Marvel makes its big move, and then they're going to have to pull back on what they were doing, but they'll have already rode this wave as far as they can take it. I guarantee you that's what they're building for.
I think what we're seeing with this double monthly release is DC trying out. I mean, obviously they wanted to get double Batman out of a month. That's blatantly
Oh,
obvious.
yeah.
But
Double
I think that this
Batman.
plays more into the current generation. I mean, I don't know about you, but if you're talking to me for more than 10 minutes and I start losing interest, I move on. And when
Benny, but you're a special case, sir.
well, I know a lot of people
Benny
who
Burn.
are just like me in the digital age, where it's like if we're
Yes.
talking for more than 10 minutes, I know individuals who have checked their phones, who have, flipped through their Twitter, you're going through all your social media apps. You want stuff now, and waiting a whole month. One of the problems Rob and I used to have by reading every comic every month was that it would be like, do you remember what happened in Batman a month ago? And he'd be like, no. And I'm like, great.
Most deaf.
But
No.
Rob agreed with me on this, by having it come out every other week, I still know what the fuck is happening, and I'm staying on board.
Which
Yeah,
I get
no,
it.
that's
Which
exactly
is
what the
a really
problem
good
is.
strategy, to be honest.
I totally get it, but they have to recognize, and I know that they do because they've been doing this for long enough, that they can't sustain this.
They
They
can't.
cannot possibly sustain this with their talent. They can't keep the same creative teams on a book and then have them keep going. So the runs either have to be shorter with breaks,
Well,
or they're going to burn out. So I really do think that they're going to try and just push this as far as they can. We've already seen them pull back on
What's
a couple of books.
interesting?
What
What's
did they pull back
interesting to see though is that it looks like they've already put in contingencies for this, and the story arcs have gotten really short. The story arcs are like 2 or 3 issues, 2, 3 issues
No,
story
see,
arcs,
that's exactly
and
the way
then they
you
can
do it.
change out the writer and artist teams as each story arc goes. As long as they have an overarching skeleton for like their main rebirth event, they can keep switching in and out, which is pretty brilliant. We'll see in the long term if it works or not, but on paper it sounds like a good idea.
Honestly, I think that they've been practicing this for a while now, because a lot of people like to discount the digital lines, but DC has been doing weekly digital books now, which are about the length of I'd say 2/3 of a normal comic for years. And what they do is they just rotate the artist constantly.
Do you know how much easier it is to put out a digital piece than it is to put out a published piece?
So much easier.
Like,
No, and I agree
the
with
amount
that,
of
but I'm saying I feel like they've been practicing for the idea of going quicker. I
Right,
feel
no,
like if you could do a published piece as fast as the digital, they would have gone weekly with Batman, Superman, and stuff like that.
maybe, I mean, look, potentially, yes. You know what I mean? But I think some of their superstar artists and writers need some time. Like, they need time to put into this because they're on the line. People know their names. People expect a certain quality. It's like someone like Tom King. I mean, people have been ebbing and flowing on how well his Batman is doing, and he just came off of the high horse of Vision, so someone like him, I could imagine he's feeling the crunch, every 2 weeks. But what I was saying before about them pulling back, aren't they taking some of their bigger name titles and putting them out once a month and increasing the price?
Yes, they are.
You know what I mean? They're already testing the waters with that. They did this for a while, and now they're probably going to start pulling back a little bit.
It
seems like yearly they might. It seems like they might alternate throughout the year, where we have during the off season, during the summer when all of the big blockbuster movies are coming out, they go to once a month. And then when we're on the in season, after summer break, fall and winter hits, we go to the every 2 weeks, which would be really interesting to see if that's their strategy. I don't know, but I have a feeling they are going to switch to the once a month, but they may do it during the summer because that's when all the movies are coming out.
I was like,
Right, it would be a great way to give their writers a break.
Where's that?
No, they're not.
like
They're not
it too.
switching. They're not switching bi-weekly to monthly. They're increasing the price for monthly.
I thought they were switching them to monthly in order
No,
to.
they're
getting
increasing
more
the price for
They're
monthly.
increasing
What they are
price
doing is
for
they
the
are
monthly
making
issues, but I'm speculating that this is an indicator that they may switch certain titles to monthly depending on the season because the like you said, the bi-weekly is not sustainable.
It's not. It's to run artists and writers into the ground. They know that eventually the stories will suffer.
The fact that they've gone this long with it is kind of amazing, and they've been smart about it. They have little breather ones where it's like, okay, here's a 1-shot or a 2-shot, with a little guest artist in there, and it's kind of more free flowing and everything. They've been very clever about it.
Exactly.
The,
This must
the
be
breather
costing
issues are so smart.
This must be costing them a fortune. Even with the bi-weekly, and they are getting technically $6 a month if you're buying a book, right? Instead of getting the 4. But the amount of money it has to cost to have that artist draw out 2 books, I can't imagine what that must look like to them. Like, and
horse crank they must have to use to get those pages done.
Right.
Part of me wonders if even before these runs started, like they had to have had a huge head start where they were mapping, because the quality of these stories is too good that they didn't at least map these all with a pretty detailed skeleton before going into this cranking process.
Yeah.
It's like they had to have had a huge head start on this to have gotten this all in place so well.
And here's what's funny about this whole thing about like how this is like, you know, more in line with like the millennial thinking, like I need to have it twice a month. Then you look at something like one of the top 2 indie books out there, Saga, where they go on break. I'm on break right now. Like, I literally just read their arc, and now I have to wait a couple of months. And they know that when they come back, I'm going to be there yelling, take my money, because I want the rest of my goddamn story.
That's how I feel right now with Monstrous and Tomboy. Like, I'm on break for Tomboy just came back, and I immediately was like, give me 10 issues, bitch. And then Monstrous is on break. And I just bought for my collection 9.8, like, signed with a certificate, and another, like, 9.8 just to put on the wall that's not signed.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, Monsters, come back. But I'm going to be there. But the thing about indie comics that for some reason DC and Marvel have never fully been able to capture is that extreme cult fan base that will be there no matter what. I mean, even in the core demographics, even in core demographics for Marvel and DC, you hear it all the time. It hasn't been out for a while. I'm leaving. I'm going over to this company. You hear it constantly with Marvel and DC, but with indies, you never hear it. You get, okay, I'll wait. And I think it's just the thing that the demographics for indie comics, if you like indie comics, you're there. You're in it to win it. You're ride or die. Like, but for bigger corporations, it's just like.
And that's why I think it's like, it's so funny because I'm almost an indie reader first, even though technically I started in Marvel. Like, I'm more of an indie reader. So for me, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, twice a week or twice a month, once a month, like, I'll pick it up. I've never missed an issue of Doctor Strange. You know what I mean? Like, I know exactly what's going on, but I'm really used to it. So, you know, like, for me, it's a totally different gauge.
Yeah. Kid Kaiser brings up a really good point. He's saying that we're going to get our diverse stories now. They're going to go through their awkward phase. They'll stabilize, and then we'll get our Court of Owl series from Marvel.
My hope is at some point these quote-unquote diverse stories just, you know, become stories, right? That's just like the status quo. That's my thing.
I feel like for some of these new heroes that are coming in, I feel like that's what we're going to get.
Rob, splooge.
Did he turn off his headphones? Can he not hear you?
I don't think he can hear us.
He's sitting in the dark.
Everyone motioned to Rob. Oh, okay. I was like, everyone motioned to Rob.
That's for you, Joey Saint 85. Thank you for subscribing.
I think that's what we're gonna get though from this more diverse cast. We're gonna get some of them that are rejected. We're gonna get some that weave really well into the universe. Like Jane Foster, I think is gonna stick around. I think Riri Williams will stick around.
It's Marvel, obviously.
Kamala Khan, I do think I think she'll be in it to win it for the long haul. You know, even though her series has been really heavy-handed, I think she will be in it to win it for the long haul.
The last arc was pretty solid. She's dealing with World of Warcraft stuff now.
Yeah, and then they'll stabilize out. They'll weave into the universe, and they'll
you would love
part
it,
of the regular stories.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
You know what's funny? The only this will literally only ever be solved after time has gone by.
Oh yeah.
Like literally, if we go 1 year from today and we come back to this conversation, then we'll have totally different perspective. So much will have changed. You know what I mean? Marvel might have.
I'll say that. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, it's just 5 years from now, those characters could all be gone, and people could be sitting there being like, what happened to Riri Williams? What happened to Kamala Khan? Why aren't there more diverse stories? You know what I mean?
Like, I love Riri Williams. I think. That's
no, and I'm not saying anyone here dislikes them or anything like that. I'm just saying I can't wait to see the future of these characters, and whether or not they're still around, if people care about them at all, if people are like, what happened to Marvel? Like, they used to be so diverse, and now it's, you know what I mean? Like.
Well,
Like I said,
think
comics.
that's
It's
part of the
going to be
problem.
really interesting.
That's
to
one
see
of my
what happens.
concerns that I have with Marvel right now is we're going so heavily into this direction, and sales are. I just looked at them all again, and some of the ones that the people were saying are tanking are not tanking nearly as bad as people are thinking, but they aren't doing amazing. Like, they're not holding top 10 slots and stuff like that. Like, a great example is everyone's like, Invincible Iron Man already tanked. That was on the second issue was number 12 on that list. That's not tanking.
People love to be
Second
alarmist
issue-
about this stuff.
First issues are a hit or miss, and then second issue and third issue are usually where you're going to see how the comic's going to do sale-wise.
Right, but there are a bunch of them that have gone down to like around the indie range and stuff like that, including Champions. My concern, and this is what I made my video about, is that they're doing it so much across the board that they are turning away the guaranteed money. You turn away the guaranteed money of the classic fan who will buy everything. Well, then, if as Rob says, the millennials leave, fuck.
But
Marvel's
now,
gonna be like, oh shit, bring back all the white straight males.
Hang on.
But now that Marvel's owned by Disney, though, they might not care as much about that core demographic.
Oh,
as
absolutely.
They used to.
Yeah, that
And
might be
that's
something too.
definitely something to consider.
I was gonna say, Betty, you and like you could be totally right about this, but you're kind of assuming that they don't have a long-term plan here. They could just be doing this in the interim. They are literally creating a fan base right now, a hardcore fan base that is rabid for the old to come back.
Yeah,
That's true.
They could have been planning this the entire time.
It's a new
Well,
Coke
you know what-
situation.
you know what-
I mean, and
what
that
if this
could
is
be
gonna
why
Marvel's
we're seeing
rebirth?
the reintegration of Unworthy
That's-
Thor.
No,
That's
hold on.
like I've been freaking trying to explain that. Thank you, Tiff. You said
No,
it.
what
way
I'm
better
saying
than
is,
I
think
ever
about
could.
this. I mean, we all pretty much jumped ship at DCU, and it wasn't for diversity. It was like, these are shit stories. We're not
They're
reading
crappy
them.
stories.
Right.
I stuck in
And
because
then
I'm
when DC Rebirth came
Sure,
back,
Joel.
we were all like, yes! And they took over the market, and we're all backing it up. That might be what Marvel's going to do. Maybe at the end of the day, they're going to be like, and here's your event. In one big event, all of the true Avengers are back. Like the original movie Avengers.
Well, yeah, and then what we're going to see then when all of our Avengers come back, like I've been saying, with the reintegration of our superheroes, of the OG squad, we're going to see the integration of the heroes from this experimental phase that were successful move into those main hero runs. And they're
And you got
going
both.
to move into that. And they'll be able to keep their new heroes, their new demographics, and they'll be able to pull back in the core.
All that
That's like, but they have to go through this experimental phase, pulling in these new demographics first, because you can't have that without this period. It just doesn't work.
It's funny. This conversation made me think. I wonder if I had a time machine and went back to like Watergate when Captain America stopped being Captain America and started being Nomad. I would have loved to have heard the fan chatter from back then to compare it to now.
Also,
we didn't have
Well,
Twitter
I
and
just
shit.
don't agree with the way that Captain America's going. I am so angry right now. Why?
And you know
That's
what?
how they talked
'Cause
back then.
You've preached that message multiple times now, Caitlin.
I have.
When it turns out that Marvel just has no idea what the fuck they're doing, I'm gonna laugh at you.
But the thing is that if Marvel wasn't currently owned by the mouse,
Yeah.
I
Well,
could
and that's
be
a good
wrong.
question.
I
That
could
brings
be
up a good
wrong,
point.
but the mouse always gets his money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and in all honesty,
Whoa.
that's a big question to ask. Marvel's taking a lot of gambits right now. That's beyond the point of like maybe they're hoping to bring everyone back in or whatever the end goal would be. They're taking a lot of gambling right now. And would they do it without the mouse's backing? I
No.
don't think
Maybe,
so.
maybe
I don't
not.
think they would have
No.
done this.
No, they wouldn't have
Also-
taken this kind of risk without Disney money. But
Yeah.
Disney, honestly, is going to make Marvel profitable no matter what. And this strategy that we're kind of seeing unfold, I think is really solid from a marketing perspective. But I know that right now, even though this change has happened in a very short amount of time, right now everybody's freaking out. And I know I'm not going to change anybody's mind about that. But I think as we see it unfold, you will all see that I'm right.
Well, I mean, that was the argument I made in my video, is that it's just happening too quickly. You're not letting people adjust to each of these heroes
Well-
so that we can be like, okay, yeah, we'll have more people in because we're cool with this one, you know?
And like I don't want to give them their due, but like I feel like at times these companies know a little bit about how to run their companies. I think they must recognize that they know when the other is doing an event. They know when something big is coming. That Marvel was aware that Rebirth was coming out. I don't think they were stupid enough to think that the market had enough money to go around for them to be able to do something completely different to you know what I mean, to try to match what DC was doing. I feel like that would have been completely like that would have been totally foolish, because that would have been pitting.
Or that could be the 90s in comics. I mean,
that's exactly it. So right now they're like, okay, you know what?
That was them being foolish and not knowing what the fuck they were doing.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But like DC's having their heyday right now, right? So Marvel's like, why don't we try some stuff? We said we were going to do this all new, all different. We'll just try some things. You know what I mean? Eventually, DC's going to have their time in the sun, and then we'll have our time in the sun. You know what I mean? Like, it's the market right now can't support both companies pumping out books that everybody wants. I think we all know, we've all seen it in the comments. People simply don't have enough money to spend like they used to, you know?
And we're also headed towards another market dip. We're headed towards our 7-year dip in our market, in our economics. I mean, you could see it. Sorry, I like Forbes, but like every 7 years we see a big dip in the economy. It's like a lot of people call it a crash once it hits Pop magazine level. Like we saw it, and we're in for our 7-year dip now. So if you're looking kind of at this struggle, you're gonna see a dip either way. It sort of makes sense to start experimenting with reaching out to different demographics. It just does.
We're seeing the oversaturation of markets that everyone assumed was, these are amazing and there's so many people buying stuff. We're seeing that in video games right now. Like, this entire year has been nothing but low sales, lackluster sales, because we've gotten to a point where it's like, look, even me who plays video games all the time, even if I want to buy them all, I can't play them all. That's what it comes down to.
The video game bubble's gonna pop.
Oh, and everything's a huge open world time investment.
Yeah, look,
that's just that's what it's turned into. I literally, like, we went out and bought all the games every month like we normally do, but I literally got to a point where I'm like, I can't play this one. I do not have time to play this.
I haven't beaten a game in I don't even know how long.
Now, imagine for a second, though, you're a fan of pop culture as a whole. Let's say you are a comic book reader, like you are, Benny, and you are a video game player. You have to choose. You're going to have to pick and choose, especially, like, let's say, like, let's be honest. There are plenty of comic book readers who are in college right now. They simply don't have the funds. They have to look at what's coming out for the week and be like, all right, I can maybe get 2 or 3 of these titles potentially. So, like, I think Marvel is weirdly making a good call right now, where they're like, they're not playing it safe. They're just trying things. People are still talking about them. They know that they have the movie market in their back pocket at this moment. You know what I mean? They know they have.
Likes DC's movies.
They know that they essentially. I mean, they essentially have like this huge endowment.
Their TV shows have
Disney.
been performing well too.
Yeah. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. So I mean, like, Marvel's like, screw it. You know, let's just do some things. You know, we'll do Civil War 2 because why not? People will buy it, right? Cool, whatever. All right, Champions, you want to do social justice warrior stuff? All right, yeah, go for it. Who cares? Doctor Strange, yeah, great. Tell a story. You know, you want to bring Thor back? All right, bring him back. Who cares? We'll also keep the other one. You know what I mean? Like, but I think they're going. I think they will go somewhere. Eventually, there's going to be a moment where things are going to start to coalesce, and all of a sudden, like, Marvel's going to be like, okay. Now we're coming to the point where we're going to stop all this and we're going to bring it back around. All right, everybody? So get your ducks in a row and prepare for titles to be canceled.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen at some point. And I think the perfect time for that to happen is when Rebirth starts to peter off a little bit. We have our Rebirth event. DC starts sliding down in the sales, and then Marvel is going to come up with their new event that ties everything together and makes everything all better again, and it hits the fuck out of that big shiny reset button, and we get to keep our popular new heroes, we get to have our core demo, and it all goes boop.
And the Fantastic Four will probably come back at that point.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Okay,
Thank God. That would
before
be
we close up the discussion, I just want to know, Rob, what the fuck have you been reading?
Right?
The great American novel.
What have you been reading?
He's been reading some Huckleberry.
Every time I try to say something, people talked over me, so I just said, fuck it, I just wanted to go play Overwatch.
Are you
I wasn't playing
kidding
Overwatch
me?
all this time. No, I've been playing Overwatch ever since you guys been having this conversation. Yeah. I was like, the hell with it. I'll just play Overwatch.
I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought about those topics, because I know one of you is going to call one of us racist.
Yeah, I was going to say, because talking about important issues online is a surefire way to get yelled at.
Yeah.